OG boy. Know that they ride or die. I keep boys by my seat, boy. Know that they ride or die.
What's up, everyone? This is your boy Big Norm, and welcome back to the Everyday Norm podcast. If this is your first time listening, I want to say thank you very much for taking time out to listen to the podcast. If you're listening in the United States or abroad, I want to say thank you as well. Thank you. Now, please subscribe to the channel, like, comment, share, tell a friend about the podcast. We cover a wide variety of topics here. If you want to listen to the audio version of the podcast is available on apps that stream podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Radio Public, Stitcher, and also I have a second podcast, Speak Life, that you can find on the same streaming apps, including Apple Podcasts. So thank you very much for your support. And today, for today's episode, we are going to be discussing um the title is called Before You Say I Do. And what this is about is basically some things that I feel that people need to take into account, things that need to be done or said, conversations that need to be had before you walk down the aisle. Now, I read a study. Now, we all know that for the most part, roughly 40%, 40 to 50% of all marriages end in divorce. And I read a study saying out of those marriages, I think 40 or less than that involved have had some type of premarital counseling. And now, what I'm saying is this: I'm not saying that premarital counseling keeps you from getting divorced. I'm not saying premarital counseling keeps you from not getting divorced or getting divorced. What I'm saying is that conversations that should be had before people get married. Many of these conversations are not being had because we're caught in the feelings we have for our soon-to-be bride, a husband, decorations for the wedding, how many people are going to be here, the wedding dress, the wedding, our tuxedo, the location, things like that. And certain things I feel between that couple need to be discussed if one or both of them are considering getting married. Um, Now, I will take my situation for example. My wife and we've been married for 23 years. We did receive premarital counseling from someone that we were familiar with, but we did not know. And I would recommend first, if you're going to get married, I do recommend some type of premarital counseling. And I also recommend, if you can, find someone who is impartial, meaning someone who does not know either one of you. So they're not going to be leaning either way on any type of advice they would be giving you because, well, I'll talk to her because I know him and I know he's a certain way. And I will tell her that you want to avoid things like that. You want to avoid things like that. I personally, and this is everyone to each his own, I personally would not recommend getting any type of premarital counseling from your parents. Like I said, just someone objective. Parents aren't always objective. Not saying that he can't be, they're saying they're not always objective. If you don't have a pastor or if you don't have a church home, but you do know someone that the two of you feel comfortable talking to, then I would recommend or consider that. But my wife and I, we've been married 23 years, and we've had our counseling, and there was some things that came up in the counseling session that we didn't even think of. So, what I am saying for each and every one of you, ladies, gentlemen, if you are thinking, you know what, he or she may be the one, and I think I may pop the question, I'm ready to. I would encourage you to for the two of you to do that. Before you do that, have a sit down, and there's some questions I feel that in this day and age, people need to be asking. Factors that could come into play later on if they are not addressed and agreed upon beforehand. Um, if you are thinking about getting married, I would ask a few questions between the two of us. to see exactly where each other stands. And because if you don't, these could prove to be a problem after the nuptials have been said. For starters, um, where do the two of you stand on such things like, for example, children? If there are no children involved from a previous relationship, how do you how do the two of you feel about children? Why? Because one may want children, the other may not want children. And not all the time, it's not always the woman that doesn't want to have kids. Many times it is the man that does not want kids. So if there are no children involved and the two of you are dating and you want to make it official, ask each other, where do you stand on children, and make sure that the two of you are in agreement on whatever side that you all have fallen on, whether you're going to have kids or whether you're going to remain just the two of you. Now, we know things can change once you get married. Someone can change from no to yes, the other one can change from yes to no. But as long as there's an open dialogue, communication, so there's no confusion on which side that either one of you stand on, then moving forward, then that's okay. But I would ask, moving forward, before you get married, where do where the two of you stand on children? Now, if there are children from a previous relationship, and where do you stand on this man or this woman becoming the new stepmom or stepdad? Why am I asking this? Why am I saying this? Because it can prove problematic. Because what I've seen in many cases, you have women that have children from previous relationships, and they want this man that they're dating, that they want to marry, they want this man to accept her and her children as a package deal. And a lot of men are willing to do that. They're willing to accept her kids and take them in and even raise them as if these kids were his own. The problem that I'm seeing is, after you say I do, and the family has moved in together under one roof, when that man has to be the father, the stepfather, and the disciplinarian in the household, now there is a problem, because now the mother doesn't want her husband saying anything to her kids, or doesn't want her husband to discipline her kids in any way, shape, or form. She basically wants to handle it because they are her kids. That can prove a problem. Same way with the husband. If he has kids from a previous relationship, not saying it can't happen, it can happen. Also, if you're talking about children from a previous relationship, one thing I was told, my mom told me, and she said if I ever wanted to get involved with a woman with a child, she said there were some things I need to look out for or ask. And like, she said, do you know, if I were to do that, do you know who the father is? Do you know if he's active in the child's life? What type of relationship does he have with the child's mother? Are they getting along for the sake of the child? Are they not getting along? Or do they have that kind of relationship where he can come back every now and then for certain things, if you know what I mean? So there are certain things you have to factor in when it comes to relationships and getting married when there are children from a previous relationship. Ladies, it works the same way. You have to ask the same question: where's the mother of the children? Is she active in their lives? What type of relationship does your man have with his child or children's mother? What kind of relationship, are they friendly like that, or just they strictly get along for the sake of the children? These are things that you do have to take and consider when you're talking about getting married. Why? Because all these things can play a factor in whether or not you can maintain your marriage, or you're splitting up in 5 years or less. Okay. Another issue that I definitely feel should be discussed is religion. Where do the two of you stand on religion? Why do I say that? Because for as long as I can remember, my grandparents um, went to two separate churches. As long as I can remember, they went to two separate churches, lived in the same house, and went to two separate churches. And my grandparents, the churches were located at a four-way stop. And my grandfather's and my grandmother's church were literally literally right across the street from each other at the four-way stop. I kid you not. So, how does this play a factor? Well, what if you're Baptist? He's Catholic. What if you're Methodist? He's Presbyterian. What if you're full gospel? He's Nation of Islam. What if you're, I don't know, whatever religion that you practice? These factors would play in as well because the children, if there are children involved, the children are going to be receiving mixed messages because the children are looking at mom and dad going to two separate churches but claim to be serving the same God. So they're going to be wondering who's serving God the right way. So how can you in turn, if you even believe in God? Some people, once again, some people are atheists. Some people are agnostic. So this plays a factor in where in your religion in your relationship as well. Where do you stand on religion? Some people don't believe in going to church, while others believe that they don't have to go as many times as the doors are open. There's a very negative stigmatism. I don't even want to use that word, but there's a very negative flavor, if you will, on the church these days, and for many of the rightfully so. We know the church isn't perfect, but a lot of things going on in churches that have turned people away. I understand that, but you have to ask yourself, where do you stand? Where do we stand on religion? Do we believe in the same God? If you do, great. Do we believe that on worshiping him the same way, he should be worshiped the same way? If you don't, that could pose a problem somewhere down the line. I'm not saying it will. I'm just saying that it might. Now, back to my wife and our counseling session. Pastor asked one particular thing, and this is something else a lot of people don't take into consideration. He said, who has debt? And it really threw us because we weren't expecting that type of question. And he said, the reason why? He said, because when you get married, whoever has debt becomes debt for both. And we didn't understand. I said we didn't understand. We didn't think about that. Ask yourself, who has debt and how much debt is it? Because once you get married, that debt becomes both of your debts. So if you don't think it's a good idea at the time, you want to work off some of your debts, hey, that would be great before you get married, because the more you work off now, the less you have to deal with once you get married. That is a wonderful idea. That is a wonderful idea. And I'll to go back when it comes to some things, when it comes to children, things like that, when it comes to discipline. Do you believe in disciplining your kids? Kids should be disciplined. See, these are things that I feel that many people should be talking about, but they don't because they're so caught up in other things related to getting married. Once again, the wedding cake, the wedding dress, the guests, the menu for the reception, the band, the decorations, the gown, the bridesmaids, the groomsmen, the wedding party, all of these things. I think people focus on so much that important things, like I just mentioned, get um, cast to the wayside, if you will, and they don't come up until after you've said I do and after you've returned from your honeymoon. I remember a couple that I know. I knew the young girl, and I did not did not know her husband, and they were having a conversation with some family and friend of ours, and the idea of children came up, and one was for children, the other one was not for children, and the husband was had no intentions for children, but apparently he did not tell his wife, because when she heard the conversation and they were talking, when she heard his reaction, she looked at him and said, "Wow, really?" So apparently the idea of children or not having children did not come up between the two of them before they got married. Now, I don't know if they're still together right now. I haven't talked to her, spoken to her in some time, but these things can play a factor because think about it. Let's say she wants kids. Let's say he doesn't, but it's never talked about. It's only assumed that children will come down the line. And then after you get married, she's ready to start a family, and he's saying, I don't want to do that. Now you're creating, not as creating a problem between the two, because now she's going to possibly feel resentful towards him because she'll probably be thinking, well, I should have known that, or at least he should have told me, or I should have asked before we got married. That could have factored into her decision before she got married. So before you say I do, ask yourself some important questions like having children, um, accepting your children, being a disciplinarian, debt, finances, religion. Have a sit down with these questions. Also, one very, very important thing in this day and age, politics. And I'm not saying it can. I'm saying these are things that can pose problems. You know, she may be Republican, he may be Democrat, or vice versa. As many of you all know, Kellyanne Conway, former whatever she was the to Donald Trump during his time, she was clearly a Republican, but her husband is a um, is a Democrat. So I can only imagine some of the political conversations that two of them have had in their home concerning everything that is going on. And to say that, I don't think that they're not just they're not saying anything about politics in their household. No, no, because both of them seem to be very, very strong-willed people, and are willing to speak their minds for their political parties. But these things can play into a factor. Play into a factor. So you have to ask yourself and ask as much questions possible. Write them down if you have to, and sit down and talk and see where the two of you agree on, see what the two of you don't agree on, and maybe you can find a compromise. So that's going to do it for today's episode of the podcast. I thank each and every one for you for taking time out to listen. Please go to the Everyday Norm page right here on YouTube. Become a Norm Sayer. Join Big Norm Nation. Tell me what you think about this episode and previous episodes of the podcast. Drop a comment in the comment section. Like, share, comment, tell a friend, and subscribe. To my gamers, I have a gaming channel on YouTube, Big Norm TV, that you can find as well. Please check out my second podcast, Speak Life. We are in season 2, I think maybe 3-4 episodes in. Please check out season 1, 15 episodes. There's the audio version of Speak Life, audio only, and the audio version of the Everyday Norm podcast. But I want to thank everyone for taking time out. Thank you for so much. You've been truly been a blessing. And let's take this to higher heights and deeper depths. But this has been the Everyday Norm podcast. I'm your host, Big Norm. I love you all with the love of Jesus, and I will leave you with these words. Let's look upward and not downward. Let's go forward and not backwards. Always lend a helping hand. In Jesus' name, amen. God bless you, and I will see you when I see you.